Welcome to Drive the Daf, clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Sukkah Daf Nun Vez is entirely an Agadata Gemara. The Gemara spends most of the Daf discussing the Yetzer Hara and the days of Mashiach. It begins by referring to a pasuk in the Navi Zechariah describing a eulogy, a funeral that's going to happen at the time when Mashiach's arriving. The Gemara wants to know what it's about. That leads us into a discussion about Mashiach and about the Yetzer Hara. The Gemara will give us a lot of advice as to how to overcome the Yetzer Hara. Near the end of the Daf, we'll refer back to the Mishnah and discuss how the Kohanim carried oil to the lamps that lit the Simchas Beis HaShavas. So first of all, the Gemara wants to know what is this eulogy that's happening at the time that Mashiach's coming. The Gemara brings a mechalek between Rabbi Deis and the Rabbanan as to what it is. One says that it's for Mashiach ben Yosef. That is, there are two Mashiachs, are two anointed ones who are coming to liberate us from the exile. One is descended from Shevet Yosef, and one is descended from David HaMelech. Now, the one from Yosef will be killed in the battle of Gog Magog. So the funeral and the hesped is for him. The other one says that it's for the it's hespedim over the death of the Yetzer Hara, because the Yetzer Hara himself will be killed, and when Mashiach comes, there'll be no use for him anymore. So the Gemara says, well, if it's for Mashiach ben Yosef, I understand why there's terrible mourning, as the pasuk says, "V'bitu elai es asher dakaru v'saftu olav b'kimisped al yachid." They look toward me, the one they have stabbed. They'll mourn over him as one mourns over an only child. It's a very terrible weeping. But if it's the Yetzer Hara, why are they upset? They should be happy. We finally got rid of the Yetzer Hara. We should be overjoying. So the Gemara says it's like a brisa that Rabbi Yehuda says, describing how the tzaddikim and the Rishonim will both cry when they see the death of the Yetzer Hara. Because to the tzaddikim he will appear like a huge mountain, and they will cry tears which apparently are tears of joy or tears of regret that he's not around anymore, and they'll say, how were we able to defeat such a giant mountain? He seems so tremendous and so hard for us to defeat him. That is, after you've accomplished something, it seems like it was an amazing task. And now the Rishonim, who were tripped up by him, he will appear to be just a hair, and they'll say, how did we manage to get beat by this little hair? It could have snapped it so easily. How do we manage to lose to it? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to look at both of them, and he's going to wonder at both of them, as it says, it'll be wondrous in their eyes, those that are left over from the people. It'll be wondrous in my eyes as well. Gemara says another thing about the Yetzer Hara before going back to Mashiach ben Yosef. The Gemara says the Yetzer Hara begins being as thin as a spider's web thread. It's that easy to get away from him, but once you fall under his spell, it becomes thicker and stronger until he's as thick as the ropes that pull a cart, as the pasuk says, those who draw sin with cords, with ropes of nothing, and then they do averos as if they're pulled with a cart rope. So first it starts thin, and then it becomes thick. Now back to Mashiach ben Yosef, we have a brisa that it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say to the Mashiach ben David, when he comes, may he come quickly, ask whatever you want, and I'm going to give it to you. Like it says, ask what you want, and I'm going to give it to you. And Mashiach ben David will see Mashiach ben Yosef, who was killed in the war, and he'll say, Rabbeinu Shalom, the only thing I ask you for is life. So he's going to say, life, your grandfather David HaMelech already said Nevuah that I'm going to give you life, like it says in Tehillim, Chaim Sha'al Mimcha Nasatala, you were asked for life and I gave it to you, meaning David said it, referring to me, he said you, referring to Hashem, that I gave life to Mashiach, his grandson. Okay, now the Gemara goes into a lengthy discussion of the Yetzer Hara. Gemara says, Rav Yira says, and some says Rav Yishuv ben Levi said that there are 7 names to the Yetzer Hara. HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls it Ra, evil, like it says, Ki Yetzer Leva Adam Ra Min Urav. The heart of man is evil from his youth. In a lot of these psukim we're about to see, the heart of man is referred to as the Yetzer Hara, because the Yetzer Hara dwells in man's heart, the seat of his desire. Now Moshe calls it an Orel, uncircumcised. He says, Umaltem is Orlas Levavchem. You should circumcise the Orel, the uncircumcised part of your heart. David HaMelech called it a tameh, because he said, Leiv tahar barali Elokim, Hashem, please create me a pure heart. That implies that there is such a thing as an impure heart, and that's one that's filled with the Yetzer Hara. Shalom HaMelech called it the hated one, like it says, Im ra'av soinacha achilei lechem, im tzameh hashkei mayim, ki gechol mat achaisa aroshe, v'Hashem yishalim lecha. If your enemy, if your hated one is hungry, give him bread. If he's thirsty, give him water. He'll be putting coals on his head, and Hashem will reward you. Now, that's advice to feed the Yetzer Hara bread and water. Some say it's a reference to Torah. Some say it's saying don't starve him completely. Find the kosher ways to satiate and placate him. Now the Gemara just adds another explanation here on this. It says Yishalim L'cha. It says not really Yishalim L'cha, but Yashli Menu L'cha. Hashem will pacify him. He will make him calm for you. Okay, now back to the list of names of the Yetzer Hara. Yeshayahu called him a Michshol. Like it says, a Michshol is a stumbling block. Like it says, Sailu Sailu Panu Dar Charimu Michshol Min Archami. Pave the way, clear a road, remove the stumbling block from the way of my people. Yecheskel called it a stone, like it says, Vasirozi is leave heaven, I'll remove this heart of stone from you, and I'll give you a heart of flesh. And Yael called it the hidden one, like he said, I will get rid of the hidden one from among you. Now the Gemara goes deeper into this last pasuk, and says how it describes the destruction of the Yetzer Hara in the end. And the pasuk says as follows: "V'satzvani archik mimcha." Me'alechem yidachdev l'eretz tzio u'shmama as panav el hayam hakadmoni b'seif el yam ha'achron v'olav vashi v'sal tzachanasa ki higdi el laseis. I'll send away from you the hidden one. I'll banish him to a dry and barren land, his face to the first sea, his end to the last sea, and then his smell will rise, his odor will rise, because he has done greatly. So the Gemara explains this phrase by phrase. I'll send away the north one from you. The Gemara interprets 20 as the hidden one. That's Yetzer Hara, which is hidden in a person's heart, and he lurks in a man's heart. I'll send him away to a dry and barren land. I'll send him to a place where there's no people, so he has no bait to start up with. His panav el yam hakadmoni, his face to the first sea, that refers to the fact that he set his eyes on the first base of Mikdash. He destroyed it and all the Talmidei Chacham that were in it. Seif el yam ha'achron, his end to the last sea, that's referring to the second base of Mikdash, that again he aimed to destroy, and he did destroy, and he killed all the Talmidei Chacham within it. And his bad smell will rise, and his odor will rise. That's because he's evil, and he leaves the nation of the world, and he doesn't start up with them, he just starts up with Klal Yisrael, which Gemara refers to as Soinehim Shel Yisrael, the enemies of Yisrael. Now, what's the last phrase? Ki higdi el lasois. So Abaye says that he starts up with Talmidei Chachamim more than anybody else, and makes great wars against Talmidei Chachamim. Now the Gemara relates a story where Abaye once heard a man and a woman speaking to each other. They were not related, but they were both traveling the same way, so they said, let's walk together. And Abaye said, oh, they're for sure going to do an Aveira together. Let me go follow them so I could break up this Aveira from happening. But he saw that they didn't do an Aveira. They walked together as far as their paths went the same way. And then they split, and they said, very nicely, they said, our paths go far apart, and the company was nice as long as it lasted, and it would have been nice to continue, but now we have to go. And Abaye had tremendous chalisha hadas. He was tremendously upset. He said, if it would be me, I would be having a Aveira for sure. And he didn't understand why he was so much more depraved than this regular guy. Till he met Eliyahu, an Avi, who told him that the greater the person, the greater his Yetzer Hara is, and that's why you feel like your Yetzer Hara was so great here. Now the Gemara says more about the Yetzer Hara. Yitzchak says Yisrael Shalom is a Gabra of B'chol Yom, famous Chazal. Person's Yetzer Hara gets stronger every day, like it says Rak Kol Rak Kol Hayom. It gets just bad and bad all the time. Rish Lakish says that it gets stronger every day and tries to kill him, like it says Teifa Rasha Allah Tzadik and Vakesh Amisai. The wicked one watches for the tzaddik and tries to kill him, and if a Kadosh Baruch Hu wouldn't help him, it would be impossible to withstand the Yetzer Hara. He's too strong. You need a Kadosh Baruch Hu's help, like it says Hashem le'yazenu b'yadei v'le'yarshiu b'yishaftai. Hashem will not leave him in his hand, and he will not leave him in his judgment. Now, how should you fight the Yetzer Hara? So Rabbi Shmuel says if you encounter this nasty guy, this menuvel, so you should drag him into the base medrash, meaning go learn what's going to happen. So if he's like a stone, he'll melt, and if he's like metal, he'll smash. So Mara says psukim that show us that if he's like a stone, he'll melt. Like it says, anybody who's thirsty, go to the water. So water is going to solve the problem here, and water wears down stones. Now Torah is compared to water, so water will melt down the stone. Now, if he's metal, he'll smash, because it says, my words, meaning the Torah that you're going to use, are like a hammer that smashes a rock. So it's going to smash the Yetzer Hara. If he's not wear downable, he'll be smashable. Now, more about the Yetzer Hara, the Gemara says, that the Yetzer Hara starts up with people in this world, and he pushes you to do an Aveira. That when it comes time to go to the next world, he turns around and he says testimony against you. Like it says, Mefanik minar avdoi, v'achariso yeh monain. He pampers his servant in youth, and it's going to be a monoin in the end. Now, monoin here means a king, but in the system of Atbach, where every letter is exchangeable with a letter 8 spaces later in the Aleph Beis, the word Sahada translates to monoin. Sahada is a witness, and therefore monoin here refers to a witness. The Yetzer Hara is going to say witness, testimony against you. And there is a contradiction about the Yetzer Hara. On the one hand, it says in the Navi Hosea that the Yetzer Hara is Ruach Zenunim Hisa. It's an external force, a spirit of harlotry that takes people away from the outside. A few psukim later it says Bekir Bechem. It calls it inside you. Which is it, outside or inside? So Gemara says first it starts outside, but once you let him get in, he gets in and he sets up shop and he becomes very much a resident. The Gemara describes this. Rava says that he's, first of all, he's like a walker, somebody who's passing by along the way, doesn't have too much control over you. Then he moves in and he becomes a guest in your house. He's more close to you. The more you bend to him, the more he takes control. And after all, he becomes a man. He becomes, like he's in charge, he becomes the ruler of the place. Now, psukim that show this. This is the Navi Nasan saying rebuke to David HaMelech for taking Uriah's wife Bathsheba, discussing the Yetzer Hara. And he says, and somebody who was walking along the road went and he came to a rich man and he didn't want to take his own sheep or cattle to make a meal for the guest, and therefore he took a poor man's sheep and he stole it from him. So here he's referred to at first as a walker, then as a guest, and then as an ish. So therefore you have all the things there all in one. It says if Yechanan, a person has a very small organ, if you starve it, it will feel full, and if you feed it, it will be hungry. That is, the more you give in to the Yetzer Hara, particularly for desires of the flesh, the more he desires more and more, and the more you feel more and more pressure to do things like that. The more you withdraw from it, the less the Yetzer Hara is going to pain a person. Says the Gemara further, HaKadosh Baruch Hu regrets having created 4 things. They are Galus, the exile of Klal Yisrael, the Kasdim, that's the Babylonians, the Yishmaelim, it's the Arabs, and the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara. These are the 4 things he regrets creating. Now, regret obviously Hashem can't regret. He doesn't change his mind, but there was no self-standing function for these things, and if we were to consider them and their own merits, we would get rid of them. They only have a function for some other reason. What's the source of this? So that Hashem regrets creating exile. It says, why are my people taken away for no reason? That sounds like he's regretting it. Kastim, how do you see that? Because it says, hey, it's Kastim zeha'am lehoya. This is the land of the Kastim, the people that should not be, that were not. Yishmaelim. Like it says, Yishlayu ayolim l'shaylidim u'vatuchos u'maragizei el asher havi ele'ah b'yodoi. Tents of robbers prosper, and they who provoke God are secure, which God brought about with his own hand. So you see there that they prosper, and Hashem wants to get rid of them. As far as the Yetzer Hara, it says, V'asher harayosi, I will bring the one whom I caused to be evil. Where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I made the evilness, I made this mistake. It's also a language of regret. This is Rav Yochanan related to Drush. There are 3 psukim which give Klal Yisrael the ability to defend themselves for all the averos that they do. This is one of them. Hasher Hariyasi, Hashem is saying, I'm responsible for it. I made the wickedness. Another one is, it says, Hine kachemer biyad hayetzer kein atem biyadi. Just like the clay in the hand of the potter are you, Klal Yisrael in my hand. That implies that it was up to Hashem that he made us do averos. And the last one is Vasirasi, slave Evan, Mibsarcha Vanasati Lachem, Leiv Basar, take away the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh, that Hashem will take away a person's Yetzer Hara and give us a chance to recover. One more source, says the Gemara, this one brought by Rav Papa as Ruchi Eti Mekirvichem, I'll put my spirit within you so that you can do my mitzvahs correctly. Now, more about the times of Mashiach. The Gemara quotes a pasuk in Zechariah where he says, I saw 4 charashim, 4 craftsmen. The Gemara says, who are these 4 craftsmen? So Chanavar business and the name of Rav Shimon Chasida, it's Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, Eliyahu, and the Kohen Tzedek. Kohen Tzedek refers to Shem, who is Malki Tzedek, the son of Noach. So Gemara says these are 4 good people who are defending the Klal Yisrael, but that can't be who these people really are, because these people are scattering Klal Yisrael. They are attacking Klal Yisrael, because the pasuk later says, "Vayemer Leimar Ela Hakarnas Asher Zeirus Yehuda." These are the horns that spread out Yehuda, that dispersed them. But the ones that you're talking about are the ones that bring them close together. So Rav Chana answered, you missed the end of the pasuk. It's referring to something else. It's not referring to the beginning of the pasuk. It's not referring to these four. When it said these are the horns that disperse them, is something else. Like it says, "Vayava Ela lahachrid oisam liyades es karnes agayim hanoisim karen el eret Yehuda lizaroisa." So these have come to terrify them, to throw down the horns of the nations who raise a horn against the land of Yehuda to disperse it. That's what it's referring to. It's not referring to the four craftsmen which you mentioned earlier. So when Rav Shesha said, when he heard that, he said to Rav Chana, why do I start up with Rav Chana and Agadata? Because he's obviously much better at it than I am. Okay, the Gemara now explains another pasuk. V'hoyez Hashalem Ashur Yavi v'artenu ki yidrich v'armanesenu v'hakemoinu olav shiva royim u'shmeina nesiche adam. This is going to make peace. If Assyria will come to our land, he will stand upon our palaces, will set up 7 shepherds and 8 princes. Says the Gemara, who are the 7 shepherds? They are David HaMelech in the middle, and on the right there's Adam, Shes, and Misushelach. On the left is Avram, Yitzchak, there's Avram, Yaakov, and Moshe. Who are the 8 princes? They are Yishai, Shaul, Shmuel, Amos, Tzfanya, Tzidkiah, Mashiach, and Eliyahu Hanavi. Okay, now the Gemara refers back to the Mishnah where we had seen that there are lamps filled with oil that are very high. The Gemara wants to know how high they are. The Gemara quotes a brayso that says they're up to 50 amos high. Now the Kahanim, we said the young Kahanim climbed ladders to fill them up, and they're holding 120 lugin. It says the Gemara, how was this 120 lugin, was all 4 together 120 lugin, 30 for each, or was it 120 lugin for each? So the Gemara calls a different brayso that says there were 30 lugin each. They were only carrying 30 lugin altogether. All 4 were 120. The Gemara says, though, it's very difficult to climb so high, 50 amos high, on a ladder holding 30 lugin of oil. It's very heavy. The Gemara says that was even a greater feat than that of the son of Marta Bas Baisus. The son of Marta Bas Baisus was so strong he would take 2 large legs of an ox, that each one was worth, the ox was worth 1,000 zuz, big, heavy, fat legs, and he would walk heel to toe up the ramp to the altar, to the Mizbeach. But the other Kahanim, did not want to allow that, because they said, Roivim Hadar Melch, you should let other people do it, let other people take a piece as well. Zumar says, so these Kahanim did a greater feat than that. Zumar wants to know what's so great about it. Why is it greater than that? It's not heavier than those ox legs. It's not heavier, but it's steeper, because the ramp of the Mizbeach only went up 9 amos over a space of 32 amos length. Here you went up 50 amos in a much shorter space, so it's a much steeper.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.